but in the dark I have no name. So leave that click in my head, and I will remember the words that you said. That's a clouded mind and a heavy heart, but I was sure we could see a new start. But when your hope's on fire, but you know your desire, don't hold the glass over the flame. Don't let your heart grow cold. I will call you by name. I will share your role.
Woo! Today we are blessed to be joined by recording artist Ricky Vazquez to talk about the music and the message of Mumford Sons.
Welcome to Pop Culture Catechism, conversations about music, movies, and the longings of the human heart. Let's get started.
Tell me if you've ever felt this way. You're going through your normal day, you're busy, work, family, friends, taking care of yourself, all your responsibilities, adulting, the hecticity? I don't know what the word is, but you know, life. And you get this feeling or thought, is this all there is? Is there anything more? Do you ever get restless? Maybe a little hopeless? Even in the relationships, which are supposed to bring us joy and intimacy, do you ever feel worn out? Maybe used? Numb? Like you've been living in a cave, but someplace, somewhere, there's an opening into the sunlight and fresh air. These are all themes and all questions which are brought up through the music of Mumford Sons, which we're going to talk about today. I'm very happy to welcome to the show Ricky Vazquez, who is a Nashville recording artist. He is 1/3 of the band Village Lights with Sarah Kroger and Ike Dolo. I am Mike Tenney. I'm a Catholic speaker and worship leader from Washington, D.C. I spent over a decade teaching in Catholic high school theology and also trying to make it big as a rock star at night. And I'm blessed to speak to thousands of people each year at events all over the place. And through this show, Pop Culture Catechism. This is Pop Culture Catechism, the gospel according to pop music and movies, where we look for God's love in the media that you're plugged into. So then we can unplug and go live the gospel out in the real world and know God's love and share God's love. So our goal by the end of this episode is not only are you going to have a deeper appreciation for Mumford & Sons, but also you'll have some practical, tangible ideas that you can take with you today to know God's love better and to live God's love better as well. A special thank you to our patrons who make this show possible through popculturecatechism.com and the Awaken app. I want to welcome to the show Ricky Vazquez. Ricky, how are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
Good. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for singing. You have such a great voice, man. I didn't get to meet you last year at the National Catholic Youth Conference, NCYC, but I was there and I saw you. You were on the main stage, and I just remember you were singing Waymaker, playing piano, and they were like vamping during adoration, and they had you sing like that Waymaker, the chorus, like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 times, and it was like high, and I was like, man, this guy has some pipes. It was really good. And I was like, all right,
appreciate it.
Mental note, need to have him on the show. So, and I was, whenever I'm reaching out to guests, I always kind of stalk them a little bit first. And I noticed on your Instagram, you have a bunch of covers of stuff that you've done, and you did a Mumford & Sons song. And I was like, I've been looking for a guy to talk about Mumford & Sons with. So I reached out, you said, yeah, so I'm glad to have you here. So tell the beautiful people about yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Ricky. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been leading worship full time for about 6 or 7 years. I released a couple records back in the day that were a little more like folksy, restless, hopeless Mumford & Sons style. But recently have transitioned to writing a lot more worship, part of this group Village Lights, and some other groups here and there, and just kind of going around doing my thing, praising the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you know if you're going back to NCYC yet this year? Will you guys be there?
Not for this upcoming one.
This,
no.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Darn, I was going to say we should get together.
Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'll be doing one of the mega sessions with Catholic U. So won't be on the main stage, but yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully one of these days we'll end up at an event or a conference together. We can chat, have a coffee, a beer, or something. So very cool. So listeners, if you don't know about Mumford & Sons, they're a British folk rock band formed in London in 2007. They have 4 studio albums: Sigh No More in 2009, Babel in 2012, Wilder Mind in 2015, and Delta in 2015. 2018. And Marcus Mumford just released this past September a solo album that just came out. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I know people are excited about it. They have 2 Grammys, including Album of the Year for Babel in 2013. And they kind of pioneered this new folk movement of the early 2010s, like the Avett Brothers, the Lumineers, Iron and Wine, the Civil Wars. They were kind of they were like their Nirvana. Nirvana is to grunge as Mumford and Sons is to that neo-folk movement. And so they have shaped a lot of the popular music of the last decade. And just if you haven't recognized any of their stuff yet, I'm sure as we play through some stuff in this episode, you will definitely recognize them. So Ricky, what do you love about Mumford and Sons just artistically?
So I actually, those first 2 records that you mentioned were my jam in the early 2000s, especially. I feel like at the time when I was a little younger, I was getting dumped a lot, unfortunately. So I was a little heartbroken lad, and there was something about their music that was very honest about like the strife that they're going through, but also kind of like with a hint of hope here and there, that I really gravitated towards. And just that whole genre of music at the time, just kind of like as a worship leader, even musically, it's kind of somewhat a similar vein with the acoustics and kind of different thing. But I've always loved the honesty of their music. Like lyrically, they're always kind of have been super honest, and just like overall the vibes. I've never played a banjo, but I love the way they had some of those elements there. And I actually got to see them play in like 2013, right after Babel.
I don't know.
I don't know. They say it with an accent, so it gets confusing. I saw them live, and it was just like an amazing show. It was almost like a spiritual experience, I would say. Like, especially at the end, they all gathered around like one mic, and just kind of the 3 of them played and sung like all in harmony and stuff, and it was really neat. So I don't know. I'm just a big fan. I'm not as current or up to date with their stuff these days.
That's cool.
But,
that's cool. No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. We'll get into
Anyways.
it. Yeah, so I love the banjo too. I actually have a banjo. That one doesn't work. My good banjo is being borrowed by my nephew right now. Otherwise, I'd play a little bit of it. But I love banjo. I bought a banjo a few years back thinking it would be a pretty easy transition from guitar, and it was not. It is like a really difficult instrument. Like if you can play guitar, you can kind of play bass, you can kind of play mandolin, you can kind of play like ukulele, but like the banjo is just kind of it's a different animal altogether. It's much harder. So yeah, I've never really gotten into Mumford and Sons. There's kind of like a song here or there that I've really liked, but these last few weeks I've been listening to their stuff and I'm like, man, these guys got some deep lyrics, like a lot of what you were talking about, just like the restlessness, just the vulnerability, but also they have this energy, it's like acoustic guitars and slamming away at them. It's fun stuff to play. It's fun stuff to listen to. And I kind of like their living out of a suitcase aesthetic, kind of very, very hipster. I like it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, I feel like they have, you brought some songs and I brought some songs that I tried to kind of clump them by theme. And so the first theme I kind of want to talk about is love and relationships, because I feel like they have some really deep stuff that's not just like, baby, I love you, baby, I hurt you, baby, I want you, it's not just like the typical stuff. Can we talk about, first I want to talk about this song, Lover's Eyes. This is one you suggested. Can we go there first?
Yeah.
Very cool. So what do you see in this song? Why'd you suggest this one?
I think back in the day, actually, I'm going to pull up the words again too, just to remember. But back in the day, I used to really be drawn to this because, I think it's like every young Catholic boy's struggle. I feel like a bit, or he's kind of being really honest about how like he desires to be one thing, but he's getting caught up with the distraction of his eyes.
Yep.
And I think I really gravitated towards that at the time, especially just kind of like the struggle. And I found out recently actually that Marcus Mumford is a pastor's son, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like themes there that are Christian based, but also he's just being very honest about the struggle of chastity. And but also there's a desire to be better in all of this. And then I just love the ending where he's like, I'll walk slow, take my hand, help me on my way. It's just this kind of like surrender of like, I know this is always going to be a challenge, but help is on the way, you know?
Yeah, I love that there's kind of this hopeful ending, because it's kind of a depressing song at first. The first line is, love was kind for a time. Now it just aches and makes me blind. The mirror holds my eyes too bright. I can't see the others in my life. And so it kind of has this theme of, love is a lie. I thought I had love and it's all a lie. It was kind for a time. Now it just aches and make me blind. Like I can't even look in the mirror. I can't even see others in my life. All I can see is this pain from this relationship. And I love this part where it says, were we too young, our heads too strong to bear the weight of these lovers' eyes? Because I feel numb beneath your tongue, beneath the curse of these lovers' eyes. You think, so I love songs that are like sexy and like kind of explicit without being explicit, you know, because there's so many songs out there that are like shake your rump, girl, you know, stuff like that. And but he's like, I feel numb beneath your tongue, beneath the curse of these lovers' eyes. Like when tongues are involved, you know, things are getting pretty hot and heavy. You know, I guess he could be talking about speaking, but were we too young, our heads too strong to bear the weight of these lovers' eyes, you know, just so talking about the connection that really happens physically with another person, even if you're not going all the way, even if you're just doing some stuff. But I think kind of what you were saying, the struggle of a young man with chastity, whether that's with pornography or whether that's going too far with a girl, whether that's putting too much of your emotions into a relationship, it has this, when that relationship doesn't work out, when that is broken, it has this really deep wound that can make you numb. Like I definitely know people who made some mistakes, had sex, went too far before marriage. And then in their marriage, they have a hard time feeling connected to their spouse because there's so much pain there that now they feel numb. Now their I don't know, their psyche, their soul, whatever you want to call it, feels so guarded. It's really hard for them to find that healing, either spiritually or psychologically through therapy. It's really hard, and it takes a lot of work on both their part and their spouse's part to be able to connect again, because those bonds aren't meant to be broken. You know, it really, we say in Christianity, you know, when you get married and you're going to share your lives and your body with another person, is till death do you part. And so when that's broken, when you join your body with another person and then that relationship's broken, it does feel like a death in a lot of ways. And even I know there's been psychological studies done on when you go through a breakup, it can be psychologically this very similar sort of event to like a spouse dying and that sort of thing. So I see where he says, I do not ask the price I pay. I must live with my quiet rage, tame the ghosts inside my head that run wild and wish me dead. And I've felt that in some ways, you know, in some of my relationships where I probably went too deep, you know, I probably got too close to somebody that I wasn't married to. And then when that breaks up, it's just like, there's such a wound there, you know, but even without talking about the bad ways that we treat each other sometimes, just the fact that I kind of let myself get too close to a person that I probably shouldn't have, you know? So.
Yeah. And what I find really interesting about the feeling numb beneath your tongue, it's like he actively is aware that it's like not fulfilling, you know, it's like in the present moment, he's feeling numb. So it's kind of like this like awareness that like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And I think this song in particular, so I feel like I had a similar experience to him. I was in a long high school relationship, and that ended right before college in a pretty like devastating way on my end, with some infidelity and just like the long-termness of it. And then into that season, becoming like a freshman in college, I just decided, you know what, forget this. I'm gonna get back at her by doing whatever I want.
Oh man,
with whoever I want, you know. But the whole time,
I bet that worked out. I bet that worked out totally fine. With nothing went wrong.
It was great. It's a joy. But that was the thing. It was like, even while acting out on like your hurt, I was aware that it was like not fulfilling whatsoever. And I think that's kind of why he's saying like, I feel numb. Like he's just trying to like feel something, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
But then there's also like an awareness, like, Lord, forget all my sins, or let me die where I lie beneath the curse of my lover's eyes. It's like he knows it's wrong and like wants to be better,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like hurt.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly like where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
But was pulled out of it in a really beautiful way. That's why I think it's cool though that he's like, take my hand, help me on my way. Cause it's like at the end, he's like seeking some help
Yeah,
in this
absolutely.
arena.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to listeners, if you've made some mistakes, if you've gone too far, if you've done some of this stuff we've talking about, like, no, just know that none of this is said in judgment or condemnation. Like, it's just a recognition of reality. Like our when we use our bodies in these ways, we connect to each other psychologically and spiritually, and that's a pain. And the reason why the church and God have these rules, it's not like you did the naughty thing, now you burn forever. It's like, hey, these are really risky behaviors. Like, I've used this metaphor before on this show. Like, fire is a beautiful, wonderful thing. It like powers our cars and gives us electricity and allows us to cook our foods. Like, anthropologists even say it's like how part of our brain developed was we were able to cook food, and then our brain didn't have to like our bodies didn't have to digest raw meat. So now our brains can like grow and get big. So like fire literally helped us develop into like, the dominant species on this planet. But yet dangerous can be fire can be super dangerous and bad if it's used in a reckless way. And the same thing with our bodies and our sexuality. It's a beautiful, awesome, wonderful thing, but we have to have rules around it. We have to have precautions around it. Otherwise, it can be this awful thing that like burns us. And so I love what it says here. There's no drink or drug that I've tried to rid the curse of these lovers' eyes. Like he talks about it like a drug. And I think a lot of times we can use each other in that way. We can use another person's body and even use another person for the way they make us feel, like use them emotionally to kind of get this fix of, oh, this makes me feel good. This makes me feel validated. This makes me feel empowered, And John Paul II, who I was Pope 2 popes ago, who I talk about all the time on this show, he says that the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is to use someone, to like treat them as an object. And a lot of times we do that with the people we're supposed to love. And this desire, this passion we feel for each other, instead of using it and letting it motivate us to be self-sacrificial and self-giving to that other person, we use it to use the other person and get like, fulfill little holes in us and, soothe little traumas in us. And we're using the other person as a coping mechanism. So yeah, but I love that it ends hopeful. And, can we go in a knot with haste? Because I think that's a good transition. So this is another song you put me onto that I was not aware of. And I was like, oh, this song, like it like cuts me to the heart.
I had a long drive recently and then just went back to these old albums. I was like, man, there's some substance in some of these things that actually I appreciate even more now than I did at the time but I still remembered every word because I was a low-key fanboy back in the day.
Yeah, that's good.
But this one recently came back to me. I was like, man, there's a lot there.
Well, and I love, if the last song, Lover's Eyes, was kind of like, love is a lie, this one's like, love is real. Because it says, your eyes, they tie me down so hard, I'll never learn to put up a guard. So that's like the opposite of the lover's eyes was a curse. And this, they tie me down and I don't have to put up a guard. I can be vulnerable. So keep my love, my candle bright. Learn me hard, learn me right. This ain't no sham. I am what I am. So if love was a sham in lover's eyes, like here he's like finally experiencing the real thing, So I have this quote here from Pope Benedict XVI, who was our Pope 1 Pope ago. He says, and this is from his great encyclical Deus Caritas Est, which means God is love. He's talking about the different types of love, how we can say like, we love food, or, we love a football team, or we love our dad or a friend or our spouse. And he says, the love between man and woman, where body and soul are inseparably joined, he's talking about sex, and human beings glimpse an apparently irresistible promise of happiness. Now, there's something in the way that man and woman can come together that gives us a little glimpse of true happiness. And he goes on to say that ultimately we can only ever be fulfilled in God. So you'll never really find it in another person, even in the most beautiful marriage relationship. But we get little glimpses, and that's supposed to be a little foretaste of heaven that kind of prepares us for heaven. So I definitely see that in this song.
Yeah, actually, some of this, at first, it's unclear to me if he's even talking about like love or God, because some of these images are very similar to like heaven also, which I think he's kind of equating this relationship to, but just this idea of like, we'll be who we are and they'll heal our scars. Sadness will be far away. I think of like Book of Revelation where it talks about like, there will be no more tears and no more, like, this is kind of like what he's saying, but I guess in the present tense, I don't really know. It's kind of vague. It could mean a lot of things.
No, and I think you're right. In Book of Revelation also has that spousal imagery of like the New Jerusalem coming down for heaven as a bride adorned for her husband, and so there's definitely that spousal language there as well. Yeah. I love this verse where it says, "So as we walked through fields of green, was the fairest sun I'd ever seen, and I was broke. I was on my knees, but you said yes as I said please." It's like, what, like, how artistic is that? That's like a really beautiful way to say I proposed, you know?
Yeah.
I was broke. I was on my knees, but you said yes as I said please. Just and then right after that, he says, "This ain't no sham. I am what I am. I leave no ties for a cynic's mind." So he's like, I'm no longer cynical. Like, I have real hope. Like, this is the real deal. So,
well, and that's what's kind of beautiful about it. It's just kind of like, I'm going to give everything I am. It's like there's no hiding. I am what I am. Or it says, he's like very honest about himself too. Like, don't let my fickle flesh go to waste. I'll love with urgency, but not with hate. Like, he's all in on this relationship, and like willing to show scars and like willing to journey with this person. But also there's like a funness to it. Like, we'll run and scream and you'll dance with me. It's like balancing the, yeah, I'm wounded, but this is going to be like a fun journey to go through. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, I like to have fun, but also in my relationship with my wife, I'm also the one that's like, let's have a serious discussion, you know? And sometimes she's just, I think this is backwards of a lot of couples where the wife really likes to talk a lot. And sometimes she's just like, okay, you have like 5 minutes for seriousness, and then we're just going to do something fun. And I'm like, okay. I love that last part too. Don't let my fickle flesh go to waste. It keeps my heart and soul in its place. There's a lot of Christian anthropology there about like our body and our hearts and our flesh all being entwined. But I love the very last line, and maybe you have some thoughts on it because it's kind of mysterious. I'm not sure what to make of it. I will love with urgency, but not with haste, and that's the name of the song, "Not with Haste." What do you make of that last line?
I don't know. Honestly, I had to Google haste again to get a clear definition of how, because to me those are the same thing.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about this pretty actively, and I don't have a clear answer for you. I don't know if haste feels more like negative, in a sense, you know, like, I don't know. Any thoughts?
I think you're right. Like, hasty is almost like immature, not really thinking, because like the fire department could be urgent on the way to a fire. But like, if they're hasty, you know, they might not be paying attention as they're going through the red light with the sirens or something like that. So I think you're right. And I think that speaks to mature love is, you know, as an immature person, it's just like, I want to do all the things all the time, at least as a man. I know that's how I felt as like a teenager. You know, I want to get into this. I want to do all the things, you know, you want to move really quickly. But as a mature person, you recognize like, you can really hurt yourself and other people by doing things that way, or turn the other person off, you know, if you're like too much for them. But your love should still have some urgency to it. You know, like with my wife, we've been together for 10 years. Like, I still want like an urgency to our love and to our passion and to our life, whether we're having fun or whether we're having a serious conversation. But, I think there's a maturity there with urgency, but not with haste. I also just love in a song when they have the title of the song and you don't hear it until the very last line.
Yeah,
Bruno Mars's "When I Was Your Man" is the same way. It's like you only hear the name of the song at the very end. I really like that. So
yeah, and it's also like from the last song we went through to this, there is like a journey from like, man, love sucks. I'm never gonna be happy. I might just die because of this condition I have of falling in love easily, you know. But here it's like a mature love, kind of like what you're saying, and he's all in. So it's kind of cool to see. I don't know. I think it's on the same album, so I don't know what happened in
and
the journey of making the record. But
yeah, and maybe the other one, maybe this one came first, and then the first one came second. You know, I'm kind of putting a story to it where it was bad and then it got good. But maybe that's just my hopeful personality. Maybe it was good and then it got bad. In any case, I want to move on to "I Will Wait." This is probably their most
known, probably.
Yeah, most known song. So I'm gonna play just a little bit. To break my step and relent, and you forgave, and I won't forget. And what we've seen, and him with less. Now in some way, shake the excess. 'Cause I will wait for you. And I will wait for you. And then this part I love. Now I'll be bold as well as strong. Use my head alongside my heart. Now take my flesh and fix my eyes. Tethered mind, freed from lies. So this song, I feel like, is basically a chastity song. In fact, I've used it at the end of like chastity talks I've given. Now, for listeners that don't speak Catholicese, when we use the word chastity, we don't mean not having sex. That's the word abstinence. How we use the word chastity in the Catholic Church is kind of like healthy sexuality, healthy integration. So like a healthy, mature, holy man and a healthy, mature, holy woman engaged in married sex are supposed to be chaste, meaning, just as we talked about before, they're not using each other. The man isn't using his wife. The woman isn't using her husband. They're coming together in a total self gift, a complete gift, as Ricky was saying before. And so that's what I see in this song. Of course, you know, that involves sometimes not having sex before marriage and not having sex with people other than your spouse. So chastity involves abstinence at times. But chastity is kind of the virtue of being like a healthy, sexually whole person who's not using other people and being reckless with their bodies or other people. So that's what I mean when I say that this is a chastity song. In that part where he says, that I just sang, I'll be bold as well as strong and use my head alongside my heart, take my flesh and fix my eyes, a tethered mind freed from the lies. So there's a couple meanings here. I love when songwriting, they use the one word to mean two different things, because to fix something can mean to like repair it. So it's like repair my eyes, my eyes, as many a young man, we look at all sorts of things with our eyes that we shouldn't be looking at and that aren't good for us. But to fix also means to like affix, to like center something, to like pin it in place. Like my guitars behind me are fixed to the wall, not that they're repaired, but that they're fixed there in place, like they're steadied. And then he says, a tethered mind freed from the lies. So you think of a tether, like a tether ball, he's like, my mind is tethered. It's anchored. It's fixed, right? Like my mind used to go all over the place after all sorts of things, but now I'm like anchored in the truth and I'm free from the lies. And I think that's just like a beautiful way of understanding like the authentic Christian understanding of freedom. Freedom is not really just doing whatever you want, but freedom is like the interior ability to do something beautiful. Like, you and I are both musicians. You play piano, you play guitar, like that didn't come, you getting good at singing and playing piano and playing guitar, that didn't come from you like breaking all the rules and getting rid of all the rules. That came from you studying the rules and practicing those rules until they became second nature, and only after mastering the rules of music did you gain the freedom to be able to sing Waymaker 10 times and not lose your voice, to be able to play on the piano, play on the guitar. Like that's the sort of freedom. When Christians talk about sexual freedom, it doesn't mean like go out and do whatever you want with whoever you want. It means the ability to do something beautiful, and if we want to be able to have a beautiful love life that is truly free, it's going to sound like something beautiful. In some ways, you got to follow the rules and master the rules, right? Because there's a different type of freedom which is what I think the world sells, which is just like do whatever you want, okay? And if I just like do whatever I want on the guitar. Like, it sounds like crap. Like, that's not the love life you want, you know?
Right.
Like, that's not real freedom. So, but I feel like that's what so much of the world sells. It's just like, do whatever you want. Feels good. Do it, you know? But that's crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great in theory, but you don't sound great in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. What else about this song? Sorry, I get excited about this stuff and I go off on tangents,
yeah.
so.
I also think it's wild that this is like their biggest hit, because I mean, it is pretty like on the nose with Christian themes. Even like when you're talking about fix my eyes and the double meaning in like Christianese in scripture, fix my eyes is very like clearly like fixing your eyes on Christ.
Right.
Which I think is kind of what he's like referring to here. And a lot of this like language is pretty scriptural, like take my flesh, and kind of like St. Paul type of vibes about like the spirit and the flesh, and kind of a lot of this is kind of like internal, like he's confident that he's going to wait, but he's also like kind of representing some of the struggle where he's like almost advising himself, like, bow my head, keep my heart slow. Like he's kind of like constantly reminding himself to focus on what's important. Yeah. And it's pretty simple overall, like lyrically, but I think when you put the context behind it, it's saying a lot without saying a lot. Cause I mean, 90% of the choruses are just, I will wait. I will wait.
Yeah.
I will wait. But yeah,
well, again,
maybe
this is me. Maybe this is me, former Catholic high school theology teacher, reading into it too much. But I think like for Christians, to wait for your spouse, like to wait sexually for your spouse, is like a real act of love. And not that it makes marriage perfect, you know, no matter, marriage is always going to be hard. Marriage is always going to be a challenge, you know, and that's part of the beauty of it, is these two people like bearing their cross together and bearing their souls together and like working through their stuff together. But you can avoid so much by not going through some of the things that we've been talking about, by not like attaching your soul to this other person, attaching your body to this other person. Like there is so much harm that you can avoid, and not that you can't heal from that. Absolutely you can. Not that you can't be forgiven from that. Absolutely you can. You're not like damaged goods, you know, you're
no, absolutely.
I think like sometimes in youth group and chastity talks, well-meaning chastity speakers will sometimes use like a thing of duct tape and like be like, oh, this is like the bond that's formed during sex. But then, you know, if you break that bond and you make that bond and you break that bond and you make that bond, you know, and the duct tape gets used up and it can't stick anymore, to like symbolize the damage that can be done psychologically and spiritually. And I think some people walk away with the message that, oh, well, I'm just like a used up piece of tape. I guess there's nothing more for me, you know. I guess I'm just used goods at this point, you know. I'm not a virgin. Who's going to want me? And they get depressed. They get all that negativity, and the devil can just pile on the discouragement and the lies on top of that. So I think we really need to be careful in Christianity. Like, yeah, waiting for marriage is a good thing, but one, it doesn't make everything magically easy for you. Two, if you haven't done that, it doesn't mean like game over, you're ruined, right? Like we believe in a God of new beginnings. So I love that last line: raise my hands, paint my spirit gold, and bow my head, keep my heart slow. Like that's worship, right? Raise my hands, paint my spirit gold, bow my head.
Even how he describes waiting, like I'll kneel down. I really like that even that image, because it's kind of like this, like laying down your life for another person, or like kneeling down, like he's laying it, but also know my ground, because it's like he's able to kneel down because he knows why he's doing it. He knows the why, and he's like his foundation, his eyes are fixed, you know. So I think it's pretty beautiful. It's
really, really hopeful too, right?
Yeah.
These days of dust that we've known will blow away with this new sun. I think there's even like a subtle reference to Jesus here. You forgave and I won't forget. Not know what we've seen in him with less. Like, who is him? Like, makes me think Jesus. You know, like we've seen Jesus go through worse with less than we have. You know, like that should be some encouragement that God helped Jesus through it. Like God's going to help us through it. So, yeah. Anything else from this song you wanted to hit on?
I think I'm good. If you have another song,
right. I think that was good. So I think we've talked a lot about passion and love and sex and chastity and all that stuff. I kind of want to get into the more explicitly faith stuff, because I people had told me, like, you know, get into Mumford and Sons. They have lots of good songs that are related to faith and God and that sort of thing. And I never really had in listening through it. It was hard to pare down because there's so many songs that I think have some of these themes. Did you suggest this song to me, Awake My Soul? Was this one of the ones you recommended?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to play just a little bit. This is one of those ones I didn't know I knew until I heard it. It's like, how fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. My weakness I feel I must finally show. So lend me your hand and we'll conquer them all. Lend me your heart and I'll just let you fall. Lend me your eyes, I can change what you see. But your soul you must keep totally free. Awake my soul. Anyway, and the last part, and these bodies will live and these bodies will die. Where you invest your love, invest your life. I'm not sure if that's how the last part goes, but it's just beautiful lyrics.
It's close.
It's kind of like
in
a hymn.
These bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die.
There we go.
It sounds like an old
it's kind of a hymn, kind of a shanty.
Yeah, exactly. But that's actually that part. It's like a bridge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
These bodies will live and these bodies will die. Where you invest your love, you invest your life. That's actually the most popular line of the song. People do like little Pinteresty images of that.
Oh, nice.
But I think it's really funny because that is really like scriptural. Like the whole idea of like where you invest your treasure, or where your heart is. Where your treasure is where your heart is. That's what I was going for.
That's it.
Kind of like that same sentiment. So it's pretty on the nose as far as like what he's talking about. But I just love that sentiment of like where you invest your love, you invest your life. It really gets you thinking of like what you're investing your love in. And then it followed up with like, awake my soul, for you were made to meet your maker. So he's kind of saying like he's been asleep, and wants to, he's made to meet his maker. Like he wants to invest his love in the right place. So
yeah, it's super scriptural. I mean, awake my soul is like straight from the Psalms.
Yeah. I've seen people use that chorus in like worship, and I'm like, wait, that's a Mumford Sons. I know where you pulled that from.
That's great. That's great. I love the beginning, how fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I think that's a great kind of sea shanty way of describing the human condition in this fallen world. Is like, in the Christian understanding, we're made good. God made us good in the beginning. It tells us that in the book of Genesis. But because of this free choice to sin, we become corrupted, and now we need to be saved. And we're still good underneath, but we still need to be saved. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. There's also a vulnerability there, because he says, like, he's talking about like stumbling and like falling for the lies, but then he's like, my weakness I feel I must finally show. Like he's awakening his soul by being honest about where he's at and kind of like vulnerable. And I think that's the thing too, like in a lot of this stuff, what I appreciate about it is its honesty, because a lot of times he deals, not the songs, some of them that I picked, but some of the darker songs really deal with like doubt and shame and kind of this like restlessness or like self-deprecating kind of like nature of, I think Marcus, the writer of most of the songs, just struggles with a lot of like shame and stuff. But then there's all these messages of hope and kind of like desiring for more. So like, my weakness I feel I must finally show kind of points out like sometimes we can hide behind our shame and think that, like, kind of like what you were saying with the damaged goods concept, that there's no redemption possible because we've done too much. But in all things, redemption is possible and mercy is available. So I think it's really cool that he's like aware of like, yeah, he's been struggling, but there's still an opportunity to awake his soul.
Well, and I love what you said, because he goes even further, not just that there's an opportunity, but like we have a role to play in that with one another. Lend me your hand and we'll conquer them all. But he says, but lend me your heart, I'll just let you fall. Lend me your eyes, I can change what you see. So it's like, I can help you through this, but ultimately don't give me your heart. Like, let me point your eyes towards the one that can have your heart. Like your soul, you must keep totally free. Like even from me, your lover, like you need to, or your friend, whoever he's talking to, like I can help you, but like ultimately, like, let's fix our eyes on God. And that's what's going to awake our souls. Man, that song is so deep. I love it. And I definitely see how you could use it in, like, you could use parts of it almost as like pseudo worship. I like it. I really want to get into the song The Cave, which was their first big hit, I think. And this is another song I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this. I like this song. Why don't I listen to this song? Well, I'm going to play just a little bit from it. So come out of your cave, walking on your hands, and see the world hanging upside down. You can understand dependence when you know the Maker's hand. And I will... How's it go? Sorry, I lost that.
We'll hold on, hope.
Yeah, we'll hold on hope, and I will let you choke on the noose around your neck, and I'll find strength in pain, and I will change my ways, know my name as it's called again. Yeah, I love that. Nice. Open D tuning sounds super beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful song. I love it. So this idea of the cave, there's a lot of dark images here. It's empty in the valley of your heart. The harvest left no food for you to eat. Where's the other one? Well, obviously a cave is pretty dark.
Yeah. It actually doesn't get to the cave till way later in the song.
Yeah, it's the end.
Song that the title is kind of hidden in there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he says he's tied to a post, right? So these are all like images of imprisonment or darkness, isolation.
I can see widows and orphans through my tears. Jeez.
Yeah. Got real Old Testament there. Yeah. If you're not familiar in the Old Testament, whenever God says, take care of the poor, he says, take care of the orphan and the widow. That's kind of like his code for these are the poor people. So definitely, again, some of his pastor kids' roots coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it's kind of like verses are really dark, and then chorus is like super bright and hopeful, which is kind of cool.
It's interesting. And there's all these like really visceral metaphors. Like he even calls them a cannibal and all this stuff. But then, like you said, the chorus is very light. Well, not super light because it talks about a noose around your neck. But I'm curious.
But he's not going to let you choke on the noose around your neck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I'll find strength in pain, and I will change my ways. I know my name as it's called again. Another kind of like reference of just like being called by name.
Yeah.
So definitely some more faith themes here.
Yeah, but finding strength in pain, like the grain of wheat, unless it falls to the ground, it remains but a grain of wheat. But if it falls to the ground, then it can like bear fruit 160-fold. I think I'm mixing parables there, but something like that.
Yeah. And then kind of like another reference to temptation, like, so make your sirens call and sing all you want. I will not hear what you have to say. Because I need freedom now, and I need to know how to live my life as it's meant to be. Again, the kind of like struggle, but I'm going to like strive for more kind of idea. And I like his like awareness of his weakness, but also like hope,
Yeah.
That seems to be a theme throughout all these songs.
Yeah. I love the reference to the sirens. I was a literature major in college, so it's like, oh yeah, Odysseus is on his way home from the Trojan War, and he gets distracted by these sirens, these beautiful women singing this beautiful song, and they distract him off his hero's journey. So he's like, so go ahead and make your sirens call, sing all you want. I'm not going to hear to anything you say, right? Because I need freedom. I need to live my life as it's meant to be. That last part, I feel like that could be. Speaking of pseudo worship lyrics, like I feel like that could be straight out of a like Hillsong Young and Free,
Yeah, for sure.
I want to talk about this idea of the cave, and again, this is maybe the philosopher Catholic theology teacher in me, but come out of your cave walking on your hands and see the world hanging upside down. If you've ever studied philosophy, one of the Greek philosopher Plato, who's like 300 or 400 years before Jesus, one of his famous writings is about, he says, most people, it's like you're living in a cave. And because all we focus on is like the here and now, we just focus on satisfying our physical pleasures and security and just like the physical needs, or we focus on just like getting honor from other people and respect and relationship from other people, which is better than just focusing on your physical needs. But really, he says, to really live and to really come out of the cave, you need to focus on what is true, good, and beautiful. And until we're living in the world of the true, the good, and the beautiful, you're just going to be a slave to trying to get honor and respect and love from people. And you're just going to be a slave to the physical demands of your body and seeking security and safety and those sorts of things. And it's only once we can correctly order our souls and we can correctly seek the truth, goodness, and beauty that we're going to be able to have the right sort of relationships and honor and respect with other people and have the right sort of relationship to our physical needs. And of course, Christians a few hundred years later, they're going to read Plato and be like, hey, this makes really a lot of sense. Like, the physical needs are good. The needs of our relationships are good, but unless they're ordered towards God, we end up enslaved to them. We end up serving God or we end up serving man instead of God, or we end up serving the flesh instead of God. And the flesh isn't bad. Other people aren't bad, but we need to keep God as our aim. So I don't know how much of a pastor's kid he was. I don't know if he ever studied philosophy or if he's just using the cave as an image of like coming from the darkness into the light. But that idea of a cave is very much entrenched in the theology and the philosophy of Christianity that, most of our time we spend our lives living in a cave and just seeking the things of the here and now. And it's only when we get out of the cave and seek the truth, the good, and the beautiful that we're even able to appreciate in the right way the things of the here and now. So, yeah.
As soon as I saw the title too, I kind of forgot about the song and then was listening to it again. And immediately I was like, the allegory of the cave, but I am not a philosopher, so I was like, I don't exactly remember. I know vaguely what it's about, but so I'm glad you went into that in depth.
That's good. That's why you have a music career and I'm running a podcast. So very good. Very good.
But I think in this song and a lot of it kind of reminds me of like this St. Augustine quote, my heart is restless until it rests in you, kind of like the constant like restlessness in himself in a lot of the songs, but also in this one, just like vaguely in others or whoever he's speaking to, just kind of like the need to rest in God. Or the first song that I played, The Hopeless Wanderer, that was like an anthem for me a while back, just because I felt like I am the hopeless wanderer. And there's this like idea, or he kept saying like, hold me fast, because I'm a hopeless wanderer. Like just this idea that we need help in order to do, to rest in him. Like we need to rely upon him. And there's like a certain surrender. And also kind of in this cave song, just the idea of like how we can be kind of trapped in the darkness. But he's like, I think he's speaking to someone else. Like, I won't let you choke on the noose around your neck. Like kind of like showing someone else the way, to true contentment.
Yeah, I think you're right that there's definitely almost like something missionary here. That line where he says, tie me to a post and block my ears, but I can still see the widows and the orphans through my tears. I know my call despite my faults and despite my growing fears. It's like, even though the world is like trying to distract me and like tie me to a post and like block my ears and drown it out with all this craziness that's going on in the world, I can still see these poor people, these people suffering. And I still know my call, despite my faults, despite my fears. I still know I am called to help other people and to like serve the world. And like, again, you can tell he's a pastor's kid because he's using Old Testament language. So I think you're right. There's like the restlessness within that he's responding to, but it's not just a me and God. It's also like, I'm called out of this to like help other restless people who might be a little further behind me or even are right next to me, and we can accompany each other on the way. So yeah. By the way, don't sell yourself short dropping St. Augustine quotes. Okay. You got some straight good philosophy there. So yeah, don't sell yourself short.
Bits and pieces.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have time for maybe one more song. We can talk about Hopeless Wanderer. I know The Wolf is a great one. After the Storm, Lover of the Light. Is there one that you want to talk about last?
Maybe Hopeless Wanderer, actually.
Yeah, let's do it.
A little more in depth. But quickly, After the Storm also was a similar, like, reminded me of Revelation. Like, there will come a time you'll see with no more tears, and love will not break your heart. But
yeah, and some kind of some Noah language, you know, of like the
yeah,
flood and everything. Yeah, very
yeah,
good.
it's just amazing to me. All these songs, I didn't even realize were so scriptural and like Christian imagery. But I was listening to, I'm a young dude. I was listening to it kind of like later in high school, and I just like, yeah, banjo, jump around at the show. I didn't even realize what was being preached to me, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, it is
But
super cool.
anyways, Hopeless Wanderer. Actually, I was listening to Marcus Mumford's new solo album, which is really good.
Oh, good. I'll check it out.
But some of these things from previous songs, like the click in my head, he actually references in a new song, which was really interesting to me. And I was like, what does that even really mean? You might have an opinion on that, but
well, I was just thinking he's a musician and he's used to hearing a click in his ears. Is what he's used to. Because if you're those of you who are not a musician, for those of you who are not musicians, oftentimes to help keep the tempo in a live setting, to keep you on the same page as the drummer and everybody else, like in your ears, like you're wearing, there'll be like a click to keep everybody on tempo. So that was kind of traditionally something that happened in the studio and not live. But now that everybody has these in ears, that's something they do even live. So. Yeah. So that's what that made me think, like it's keeping me on track, or maybe it's too loud and I can't hear, because if the click track is too loud or too soft, it throws everything off.
See, that's what I thought it was, but I was like, wait, is he? Because not everyone knows what that means. So
yeah, that's true.
It's cool.
That's the official musician translation.
But I just loved a lot of this imagery. Like, you heard my voice, I came out of the woods by choice, kind of like this. He made a decision to get out of his state of being. Shelter also gave their shade, but in the dark I have no name. Like he could continue to stay in the dark and not step out, but in there's no like true fulfillment. And kind of similar, a lot of these songs talk about hope, but in the chorus, like, so when your hope's on fire, but you know your desire, don't hold a glass over the flame, don't let your heart grow cold. I will call you by name, I will share your road. I think that is like God speaking to him, in my perspective. Like, when your hope's on fire, but you know your desire, don't let your heart grow cold, I'll call you by name and I'll share your road. Kind of this idea, like God suffers with us. And then it's interesting, I think immediately there's like a response, and it's cool in the song, like there's a break, and then the tempo changes and it gets all aggressive, and like even musically it changes. So he's like, yeah, like I'm down, I want you to share my road, but like hold on tight, because it's gonna be a ride. Like I'm a hopeless wanderer. I always loved just that phrase, because it's really true.
It is. And I love hold me fast. Again, it's one of those words that means two things. It can mean like hold me quickly. Like right now, like I need security now, but to fasten something, hold me fast. It's like batten down the hatches and fasten the mainsail, you know, like here, it's like there's a storm coming. You gotta hold everything fast, you know, hold everything together. So I love that. Again, kind of a sea shanty terminology there. And I love where he says, when your hope's on fire, know your one desire. I think a lot of times in Christianity, especially American Christianity, desire is seen as a bad thing, right? Desire is seen as like, no, that's the temptation. Your desires are the bad thing. Pour some cold water on that. But I think in an authentically Christian, especially in the Catholic Church with John Paul II's theology of the body, he's kind of tried to recover this sense from the early church that your desires are ultimately good, right? They've become disordered. They've become corrupted through sin. And so we, as it talks about in the cave, you know, we often seek, you know, the affection of others, or we seek the goods, the needs of our bodies in kind of this disordered way, so that we become addicted to approval, or we become addicted to the things of this world. But ultimately those desires are pointing us to a good thing. And when we're properly ordered and we're out of the cave and we can, you know, we know our name, I will call your name, I'll share your road. Like he's saying, I'm going to help you see that your desire is actually like, if you have desire, like you actually have some hope. Like hope and desire are intrinsically linked. And I think that is a super Christian way of seeing the world, is when you're having trouble struggling with your desires, that's not fundamentally at its root a temptation. Like ultimately it's pointing to God, and you just got to find the right way to order that desire so that it's pointing towards the right thing. Right. So I really like that he ties hope to desire, because I think absolutely they're very fundamentally tied.
And there is like a journey here. It's like I wrestled long with my youth,
Mm-hmm.
and tried so hard to live in the truth. You know, like there was always a struggle to like, or a desire for God, but like there was a struggle there. But then it's like you brought me out from the cold, and how I long to grow old. So it's like this like awareness that like God pulled him out of like a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
But then instantly like, but hold me fast, because there's the awareness that I could easily in a second drift away,
Yeah.
or I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, it's like the old like hymns, like, or like, come thou fount, like prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to
Yeah.
leave the God I love, but here's
Mm-hmm.
my heart, Lord, take and seal it. Like there's this struggle throughout the whole song. I love how it ends. I will learn to love the skies I'm under, because it's not only like accepting the struggle, but it's accepting like kind of like the suffering in a way, you know, like the skies
Mm-hmm.
I'm under. A lot of the early stuff was like getting out of the woods and this like dark imagery. In the
Yeah.
dark I have no name, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of this idea, I will learn to love the skies I'm under, it's like an acceptance of all things,
Yeah.
even his wandering, you know, um, which is pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
think
That's really beautiful.
this whole song in general, like that journey, I related to a lot, because kind of as I was talking about earlier, wrestled long with my youth. I did have a season of like rebellion that was pretty awful for a lot of people involved, especially myself, um, that God kind of pulled me out of in the midst of, and kind of like brought me into like this deeper relationship that ended up turning into like a ministry, and
Mm-hmm.
like my career path and all that stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
still remember the what I'm capable of in a sense, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
this idea of like hold me fast is like really resonates with me a lot, because I'm like, I know how easily without God what I'm capable of, you know, and
Yeah. I
but
could be that
also
guy
a
again. Yeah.
gratitude of like kind of, you pull me out of the cold and all this. Like there is an awareness of how much we need God to pull off this mission of life. Yeah,
I know a lot of people share that a similar story, and maybe there's some listeners now who are maybe in that, maybe they're in the first part of that story and they're not sure how to get to the second. Can maybe you just tell us a little bit, like what was the turn, or was there a turn? Was there a series of turns? Can you just tell us briefly, like for somebody who's maybe in that and they're looking, well, how do I turn things around? Did you have any advice for them?
yeah. Well, my turn was kind of random, um so I was involved in like youth group in high school and stuff. But as I said, with the bad breakup, and I also had some stuff going on in my family. My dad passed when I was in high school, and like going through some of that grief and stuff. So when I got to college and I was on my own, I was like, and I think I relied upon that relationship to like distract me for a while. So when that was gone, I also had to deal with like this grief that I'd kind of like left unattended to. So yeah, I just acted out, but the whole time like knew I wasn't, like it wasn't really who I was.
Mm.
Um, so it's like this constant struggle, and there was a midst of that actually I got asked to play at this thing, and all these people were affirming me, and I was like, I don't. I was just doing it for like a paycheck, and I was like, not. I felt a lot of like guilt about that, but was like encouraged by people affirming me. And then a friend of mine, in that same like week, told me to like apply to be a summer staffer at Life Teen Camp Covecrest
Mm-hmm.
that I had gone to as a high schooler, and that's where I first like even became interested in God in high school and youth group. So like in this like really sweet week where I was like feeling good about life again, I applied real quick, completely forgot about it, and then just went back to freshman year Ricky, and completely forgot about it. And it wasn't until like way later on they asked me to actually come and spend 6 weeks of the summer there, and I tried to get out of it, and I didn't want to go. Um, but it was really sweet of that the guy who asked me to sign up, or like a friend of mine who's like, I think you'd be really good at this, and actually kind of had my like reversion or to God at camp when I was like supposed to be there as a missionary. I really was being like mission to by the other young adults that are there, and there was a priest there that the first week I was there did a lot of healing with me through a lot of stuff. And just kind of what was really cool was like my community kind of pulled me out. It was like people that recognized when they had saw me at camp before, like, hey, I saw something in you that I think would be really good. Even when I was like, oh, that person's gone, that you're thinking about. But then when I re-surrounded myself with those people, how quickly, you know, like through community, you can kind of be brought out of the cold. So it really was like a happenstance that I ended up going to this camp, and then through community and a lot of prayer and sacraments came out of the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I've heard so many stories like that where what finally got people out of kind of their dark place and their bad decisions was just a simple yes to a friend who reached out to them. And, you know, even though you're just like, I tried to get out of camp, like that initial yes, like, oh yeah, I'll play this thing. Oh yeah, I'll apply. Like God can take even just a small yes and do big things with it. So listeners, if you're in that place, maybe look for some places in your world, in your school, in your church, in your job, with your friends to say yes to maybe what God has placed in your heart, even in the midst of those things. All right, Ricky, I want to thank you so much for being here and talking all about Mumford & Sons and singing and sharing your heart with us. I told my listeners at the beginning that we would leave them with some tangible ways that they can live the gospel in their life. So I'm going to try to have each one of us just give one takeaway from the episode. You want me to go first? You want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So my one takeaway is just kind of like we were talking about with the cave, like remembering that ultimately it's not about the things of this world. We can get so caught up in just the day to day. And does that person like me? And is this person giving me what I need? Or is this person treating me right? Or am I going to get this? Am I going to get to have this experience or do this thing? And all of that is good. All of that is fine, as long as we keep our eyes on God, as we fix our eyes on God. So that's going to be my prayer and my resolution today, is to try to fix my eyes in prayer, in scripture, on the Lord, and kind of let everything else fall into place.
Well, initially that's where I was going to go, but you took it.
Oh, so,
that's fine. I guess one thing in all of this is just like kind of the thought of it's okay to not be okay, or that redemption is always possible. I think there's a lot of shame in the author of a lot of these songs, but in the simultaneous hope. And I think for any of the listeners that might be feeling a little bit of shame or feel like they're unworthy of God's love, that they know through personal experience and just from all the stories of scripture that we have, that God's love is always available, and you don't have to live in the cave. There is hope, and there is redemption and mercy available. So
awesome. Very cool. Ricky, I often ask my guests to close us in a prayer. Would you be willing to close us in prayer at the end of this?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Listeners, wherever you are, let's take a moment and let's pray.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Come, Holy Spirit. God, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. I pray that for everyone listening to this today, that we can take a moment today, this afternoon, whenever we watch this, and rest in you. That we take a moment and offer up our days to you, offer up our hearts to you, that we can rest in your goodness, that we may trust in you, trust in the plans that you have for us, plans that are good. We offer up all that we are, and we give you our complete and total surrender. As Mother Mary surrendered and said yes to you, we ask for her intercession as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, listeners. Hey. And we would love to hear what you have to say in the comments of wherever you're listening, or leave us a rating or review and let us know what you think, or reach out to us on social media. Speaking of social media, Ricky, where can the people find you if they want to find out more about you or Village Lights or anything? What do people need to know
about? My handles are Ricky, Vazq music. So Ricky kind of Vazquez music on about everything. And yeah, just looking up Ricky Vazquez, Vazquez on a quick Google search. You'll find a lot of stuff.
Great.
Music's
We'll put it
available
in
everywhere.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes as well. Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But,
Well,
thanks for having me. I have a baby screaming in the background, so
awesome. Cool.
I might run to that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Peace out. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. If this show touched you, if any part of it you thought was just like really inspiring, I encourage you to share this with somebody. You can take a screenshot or send the link or share it on your social media or send it to a friend. All of that really helps our show to grow. And if you really want to help us out, you can go to popculturecatechism.com and become a patron and support our show at one of 6 giving levels, all of which come with great perks. And even at the lowest level, you get access to exclusive content through the Awaken app. For example, in this episode, I'm going to play a Mumford Sons song, but you'll only get that if you are in the Pop Culture Catechism community in the Awaken app by becoming a patron. But the Awaken app is not just for patrons of the show. You do get lots of premium content for this show and other stuff by being a patron, but also it's a free app for everyone. It's a great Christian community for like-minded individuals. There's also a Catholic prayer library, Christian music library. There's a hub for all the things on Awaken Catholic as well. So definitely, if you haven't downloaded the Awaken app, check it out. We thank you so much. Please share the episode. We will see you next time. We love you.